What is up, everybody? It is Jerry from Team Unco Studios, back again with the second part of this little three-part series we got going on of adding dynamics into our mix, okay? So if you remember from the last video, we started adding a little bit of EQ into one of our kicks for one of our little projects that we had, just in one of our folders. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that now. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look down on the screen here, and you'll notice I've still got this kick soloed, right? So this is the kick with the para in, okay? So let's go ahead and put that air para in, and this is the kick with it in. Okay, now let's go ahead and take this kick out, or the para out. Okay. Okay, so you can just hear it just adds punchiness there, right? It just adds a little bit of to the whole kick itself, okay? So let's go ahead and listen to the whole mix all together, all right? So let's go ahead and leave the air power in. Actually, you know what? Let's take it out. And then let's go ahead and unsolo and let's listen to the mix. Okay? So now let's go ahead and put the power in and let's listen to the mix. Right, so it just adds a little bit of punchiness there on the low end, right? Instead of it sounding so dry and kind of a little bit, shrunken, I guess, you just hear it kind of flexing a little bit, okay? I guess that's the best word for it, okay? So let's go ahead now and add some compressor, all right? So what this compressor is gonna do now, if you notice when I play and you look at my meter down here, you see how I've got this red kind of coming in here? There isn't anything necessarily wrong with that. We can always volumize that later, but the best situation would be to put a compressor on the low end stuff, right? Obviously, we went over EQ and stuff like that a little bit in the last video. Typically, low end stuff like basses, kicks in this, in this kind of instance here, and different low end stuff usually have compressors because you want to get a lot and maximize the boom in there, but you just don't want a lot of volume, right? So some of that volume, we have to kind of shave it off so we get like that nice, sweet, round sound, okay? So that is what we are going to do with this kick, okay? So again, if we go into our inspector and into our A1 lane here and we pop this guy open, we're going to go ahead and go to our dynamics. And in that little dynamics plus folder there, we're going to come all the way down to where it says compressor vintage, okay? So if we open that and we go ahead and again double click on our vintage compressor, we have this guy that pops up, right? Oh my gosh, what the heck is this, right? Because this is very old school. This is a very hardware type of compressor, right? And if you don't really know what ratio and threshold and wet and dry and these kind of things mean, this terminology, then this would be very confusing, all right? But just like EQ, we're going to make it very, very simple, okay? A compressor does one simple thing, and it just makes loud things quieter and quiet things louder. That is the very, very root basics of a compressor, okay? So this little tool right here is going to measure for us how louder and not louder and not quieter we want our compressor, okay? Using things like attack and release and using a threshold, like a threshold being where on our dB level do we want this compressor, okay? So it's terminology like that. The best way I found to be able to explain this to you guys would be to just pull up my Studio One and pull up a compressor for you really quick and kind of give you an idea of what a compressor does, okay? So if you notice where my volume is coming in here and you see this little line I've got kind of here, this is measuring where I want this compressor to start activating when my vocal kind of, volume here hits that compressor. That is when the compressor is going to engage, okay? When the compressor engages, a few things happen, all right? There's how much you want the compressor to attack that volume and how much do you want it to release when it has attacked the volume, okay? I know I'm going quick, but I think you're going to get the point here, okay? The threshold right here, okay, is where that is. So you notice right there, the white line, okay, I'm going to go down, down, okay, see, I'm losing my vocal there, but as I'm bringing the threshold up, the attack isn't as aggressive, right? So you can start to hear more of my voice because we're not attacking that volume as harshly, okay? The ratio is the input level that you want it to cut, okay? So again, you see where that line is moving? This is how much of the input level you want it to cut with inside the ratio of your kind of compressor here, okay? So this is what this is doing. It's telling you how much of that you want it trimmed off right there, okay? So your threshold is moving the knee up and down. You see that? Okay, you see how it's moving it up and down, all right? And then the ratio is the little scissors on the top that is kind of fine, tooth telling you where you want that input level to be cut at, okay? The attack and the release, if you notice where this little yellow line is up here, you see this guy, okay? That is the actual compressor working, okay? That's squashing my vocal down. The attack is 26 milliseconds right now. Do we want the attack to be quicker? If I come down, you see how fast that yellow line is moving now, okay? But if I come up, the attack isn't as aggressive, so there's not a lot of it there. So I just like to have it right as soon as it's engaged, okay? And then I like to be able to now have my release. If I have a very, very slow release, then you're not gonna see it. But if I have a fast release, you see? So the release is staying down. You see how it's staying and squashing it, all right? But if I have a faster one like this, you're not going to see that, okay? You're going to see it release pretty quickly, all right? That is the basics of a compressor, all right? I know, again, I'm going quickly, but it's very, very difficult to read a compressor like they have in MPC Beats without knowing the knowledge, okay? So I know this compressor still sounds a little bit weird for my voice, but I'm not worried about it, okay? So let's go ahead and, let's not go there. Let's go ahead and get out of here and come back over here now, okay? So now when we bring this, I knew I was gonna do that. Darn it. Okay, hold on here. Let's go back to my MPC Beats here. There we go. Okay, anyway, so when we come back to my compressor here, you'll notice now we have all this terminology here: attack, release, the knee. The knee is that little point that was moving, when we were moving the ratio and the threshold. Where that line meets, that's the knee, okay? You can make the knee more rounded or you can make it straight, just like the way I had it on my compressor, okay? So the knee, we're gonna kind of round this out for our kick, all right? And this dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about 50 to 60%, all right? And I'm going to got a pretty good threshold going here, all right? And I'm going to give some pretty good input, all right? My attack, I want it to be right around where it's at now. And my release, I'm going to go ahead and have a pretty slow release, probably around my 30s right there. And then my output level, I want to go up to about an 8, all right? So now this is going to start to squash down my compressor, okay? My EQ. You notice now I am not hitting the red there. Now, if you notice when I undo this, there's that red. Now look at the compressor, okay? Okay, now I'm able to get a little bit more volume. See, and now it's starting to fit a little cleaner into the mix. Now, I know that this is very extreme. It sounds not the way I would want the kick to sound, but I'm just, again, giving you guys the rundown on how it works, okay? So don't pay attention to like, oh my gosh, that doesn't sound good. I know, we're not focusing on the sound. We're just focusing on making extreme measures and how to be able to control those measures via, hardware like this, or being able to use actual hardware and using inserts that are digital, So that's kind of the whole idea with doing this kick thing and making these little kind of 3-part little series of these videos, okay, is to kind of go extreme. So let's go ahead and listen again. And what I'm going to do is start taking stuff out and then we're going to bring stuff back in. All right. So here is the kick just by itself. Okay. So I could probably go back to the kick here and probably bring some of that output level down. There we go. So that's a little better there. Okay, so there we go. Now I can add some volume. Okay, and now let's go ahead and take these out. So here's my kick dry. Okay, here's my EQ. So the EQ added that nice punch, and then the compressor kind of squashed it and was able to give us some volume. Okay, so that's the idea, okay? And you can sit here and mess around with your compressor for a long, long time, okay? I've spent a lot of time working on compressors, especially on kicks, all right? So in the next video, y'all, we're gonna kind of wrap this little series up with how to add some reverb, all right? Now, would you typically add reverb onto a kick? No, but you know, there's a lot of instances where you might add reverb on a kick, and I love reverb on a kick. I think it gives it a lot of dynamic. So we're going to use it on this next part of the video, and we're going to kind of wrap the whole thing up, all right? Peace and love from all of us at Team Unco Studios, and we'll catch you all on the last video later.